Hey guys, Chuck here. I hope everyone is doing well. Here with another video blog in the video blog series that I'm doing. Today I want to talk about something that God really kind of placed at the forefront for me this past weekend, and that's dealing with negative voices, dealing with negativity. Had a situation this weekend where I was in a conversation, and the conversation started out pretty good as any regular normal conversation. And all of a sudden the tone of the conversation and what was being discussed started turning a little negative. There was a lot of blaming and complaining and things like that were going on. And the conversation really started heading down a negative path. And at that time I had a decision to make. Was I going to stand strong in who God has called me to be and being that positive influence and that positive voice and turning that situation into something different? Or was I going to succumb, to the negative voices and the negativity that was, being displayed? Well, I'll tell you, I completely failed. I completely failed. And I went along with the negative voices. I went along with the negative voices. I followed that negative path. And not only that, I was fanning the flames of negativity. So I wasn't just a bystander. I wasn't just a bystander to the negativity. I was in it. I was fanning the flames. I was being as negative as anybody else. And, it wasn't until I was a couple of hours removed from the conversation. It wasn't until I was on my way, actually back home that I realized that I did not handle that situation in the best way. It was at that time that I realized that that was a little test for me. That was a little test to see exactly what I was going to do in that type of situation. And like I said, I completely failed. And I felt God talking to me, and I felt a little convicted about the whole situation. But the beautiful thing is that once I acknowledged the failure, once I reflected back on it, and I acknowledged that that I could have done better in that situation, I felt this release. I felt God saying, okay, you're forgiven. And I felt renewed energy, and I felt this strength, and I felt like, okay, I want to make this situation better. And also, I want to make sure that when presented with this situation again, that I'm going to act in the way, and I'm going to act in the manner, and I'm going to be the person that God has called me to be, and the person I strive to be each and every day. And I'm not going to succumb to the negative voices, and I'm not going to succumb, to the negativity that's out there. And I share this with you guys to let you know that it's tough. It's tough because, like I said, this wasn't a situation where I walk into a conversation that's already negative and it's already headed down a certain path, and I can tell myself I don't need to engage in that conversation. That's one that you can shut off right away and you can stay away from. No, this is a conversation that didn't start that way. It kind of evolved into that. So over that time, you have that decision to make. When you're faced with that, and each of us will be faced with that. We're probably faced with that every day, whether it's at work or at home or wherever it could be. You have those situations where you have something that is starting to turn negative, is starting to head down a certain path, and you have that responsibility to be that person that God has called you to be that light, to be that positive voice, to be that positive influence, and take that situation and turn it in a different direction. And it's difficult. It's extremely difficult, especially when you're dealing with friends and family and coworkers and those type of people who sometimes you give a pass. Sometimes you don't say anything because you don't want to offend or you don't want to make anybody feel a certain way. And of course, the last thing you ever want to do in a situation like that is you don't want to condemn anybody. Because none of us should go around condemning each other. I mean, that is the last thing we should do, because, the person without sin is the one who should cast the first stone, and none of us should be throwing stones. So what it is, though, is by you standing up and being the positive light and being the positive influence and being the person that God has called you to be. In the situation I was in, if I had stood up and had stayed positive with the whole conversation and turned that conversation, in a positive direction, what I do at that point is I then allow God to work through me and the positive message and the positive influence that I'm showing, and to open up the eyes of those who may be the negative voices at that time, and help them to see that maybe what they're saying is not what they should be saying, but it's done in a way where I'm not convicting them. I'm not telling them you're doing wrong. No, what I'm doing is standing strong in who I am and who God has called me to be, and allowing God to work through me to do a work in them. And that's how it works. But if we don't stand up and we don't stand strong in who we are and stand strong in who God has called us to be, then he could never do that work. He could never change that situation, and he could never open the eyes of those, who may need their eyes open because of the negativity that they're espousing, the negativity, that they're showing. And many times we don't even know that we're being, many times we don't even know we're really being that negative. The enemy will use anybody, and he'll definitely use those closest to you to try to bring you down. And many times they don't know that they are being that negative. They don't know the negativity and how it's having an effect on you or those around you. But it's when you're allowed, when you're the light, when you're the positive influence, when you stand up and you stand strong in who God's called you to be, that he's able to work through you. And at that time of working through you, he can then do a work in them. So it's amazing how that all works. It's amazing how God can work through us. But again, he needs us to be strong. He needs us to be the people that he's called us to be, so that he can do a work through us in others. And like I said, you'll fail. We'll all fail. I was reminded of that this weekend. As much as we want to strive to be perfect, and as much as we want to strive to never make a mistake and to never fail, the reality is we will. But the beautiful thing is, that's the moment where we can grow. It's in our failures that we can then grow. It's in our failures that we can reflect back on what we did and fix it and do better next time. And that's the growth, and that's where God can continue to use us. It's where he grows us. It's where we become stronger, and it's where we become a better version of ourselves. So I hope that testimony, I hope sharing that with you has opened your eyes in some ways, and I'm going to tell you, it opened my eyes this weekend, and really helped me to grow and helped me to reflect on how I would handle these situations again if and when I'm faced with them, because I'm sure life will throw it at me again. All right? So, guys, be strong in who you are. Be strong in who God has called you to be. Even in those negative situations, you're called to be the light. You're called to be the positive influence. Be that positive influence. Be that positive influence with strength and confidence, knowing that God has placed that inside you, and knowing that he needs you to do that so that he can do a work in other people through you. All right? I love you guys. I hope this message has been a blessing for you. As always, I'm blessed to be able to talk to you, and I really thank you guys for listening. God bless, and I'll see you on the next video blog.